The drama between young Jock, Rasheeda, and Menz has reached a breaking point, and what follows will leave you speechless. Just when everyone thought the tension between the two reality stars couldn't get any worse, young Jock made a shocking accusation that is shattering the foundations of their friendship. Fans are shocked to learn that young Jock is claiming Rasheeda is pregnant, and that the father isn't her husband, but Mendeecees himself. This is just the beginning of what could be the biggest scandal in reality TV history. The night began, like any other, with dim lights, laughter, and casual chatter. However, the accusations have set off a chain of events that could cost Jock everything. The police are involved, and Rasheeda's reputation is on the line. What began as a heated argument has now turned into an all-out war, and everyone is wondering how long this explosive drama will last. Rasheeda was there, as usual, charming everyone with her grace. But something in the air changed the moment she saw Jock's expression. She knew something was wrong. Something was coming that she wasn't prepared for. And then it happened. Without warning, Jock stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise. "Do you think I'm blind?" he snapped, barely containing his anger. That night, everything changed when young Jock entered the room, his face tight with fury, his eyes burning with an accusation no one saw coming. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking despite her attempts to stay composed. "I know what's been going on," he said with rage. Rasheeda froze. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for something to anchor her in that moment. This time, however, she wasn't caught off guard. But then Jock pointed at her, his finger accusing her even more sharply. Rasheeda's heart raced, her mind spinning in disbelief. How could Jock say something like that? How could he even suggest such a thing? She was about to respond, to laugh it off, to defend herself. But Jock wasn't done. "You think I'm a fool, huh? You and Mendeecees. You think I don't know? You think I don't know you're pregnant with his child?" The room fell silent. The air thickened. Everyone was watching, waiting. The tension was unbearable. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said at last, her voice strained but steady. "This is a crazy joke. You've lost your mind." But Jock was relentless. "You're pregnant, Rasheeda. You can't hide it anymore. You and Mendeecees have been sneaking around. You think I can't see through your little games? The whole world can see it. Everyone can see it." Rasheeda felt her breath catch in her throat. The accusations cut through everything she had worked for, everything she had built. The room spun around her, the faces blurred. For a moment, she couldn't even think straight. She had been with Kirk for years. Although there had been ups and downs, Mendeecees was a line she never imagined crossing. Yet Jock's words continued to echo in her mind, his voice slicing through the confusion. "Don't act like I'm stupid. I know what I saw. I know what's going on, and You're insane, Jock," she finally yelled, her voice rising with emotion. "How dare you say that about me? How dare you make these accusations without any proof? You think you can just throw my life away because of your jealousy?" She opened her mouth to explain, to say that it was all a misunderstanding, that Jock was mistaken. But before she could say anything, something inside of her snapped. Jock's eyes flashed with something dark and dangerous. "You think I'm jealous? This is about the truth, Rasheeda. You've been lying to everyone, and now is the time for everyone to know. You can't hide behind your fame and your idyllic little world anymore." Rasheeda's hands shook with a mix of fear and rage. Her heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't believe this was happening. Not like this. She had spent years in the spotlight, building a career, a family, and a reputation. Now this isn't true. You're wrong. But Jock wasn't listening. His face twisted with anger, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like he was ready to explode. "I'm not wrong, Rasheeda. The world is about to find out what you've been hiding. And when they do, don't come crying to me the way you're supposed to." For one moment, everything was being torn apart by someone she once called a friend, someone who was supposed to have her back. Rasheeda stood frozen, her mind racing, her emotions in turmoil, unable to believe what had just happened. She couldn't believe the words Jock had thrown at her, The accusations now hung in the air like a dark cloud. As the room slowly filled, with whispers and murmurs, she turned to her closest friends, her voice shaking. "I can't believe he—" Before she could finish, Jock turned and stormed out of the room, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief in his wake. The next few hours were a blur. Rasheeda tried to contact Mendeecees, but he wasn't picking up. She tried to call Kirk, but he wasn't available either. It felt like everyone had abandoned her. She sat in silence. "I can't believe he would accuse me of something like that," she whispered. But nobody knew what to say. Everyone was still processing the shock of what had just happened. They all knew Jock could be impulsive, but this was different. Rasheeda knew deep down that Jock's words were going to destroy everything she had worked for, but she didn't realize this was just the beginning. The fallout from that night would ripple through her life in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. And soon, the entire world would know the truth. The only thing she could do was sit in the silence of her mind and try to process the shock, anger, and pain that now consumed her. It felt like her entire world was collapsing, and there was nothing she could do about it. She tried calling Mendeecees again, straight to voicemail. The unanswered calls only added to her dread. What did he think? Did he believe Jock's accusations? The weight of disbelief sank deeper into her chest. It wasn't just the claim of infidelity that stung. That alone could send anyone reeling. She spent hours pacing her living room, staring out the window, watching the world go on without her. How could Jock do this? How could he so easily destroy everything they had built? He knew her. They had been through too much. Too many late-night conversations, too many laughs. They had always been close. She thought they could rely on each other. But this was betrayal. The hardest part was not knowing where her husband stood in all of this. He hadn't called since that night. It was as if he had disappeared. The silence was deafening. Was he out there listening to the rumors? Was he buying into what Jock had said? She closed her eyes, trying to calm the storm within, but all she could think about was the chaos Jock had unleashed. Then her phone buzzed. Her heart skipped a beat. It was a message from an unknown number. She opened it, hoping it was from Mendeecees. But it wasn't. It was a blurry video from that night's argument, and what she saw horrified her. Joke playing on screen, the video was already going viral. And although it was a low-quality clip, barely a minute long, it was enough to cause serious harm, because she could see the abrasive words and anger that had been in the air. The video ended before Jock's last words, but it was obvious what had happened. The world now had a front row seat to the most embarrassing moment of her life. Her private life was no longer under her control. It was publicly available for everyone to view, analyze, and judge. She sat down on the couch, her hands shaking, and watched the video again, wondering how they could have done this to her. She knew how the media operated and how people were fueled by scandal. But this was different. This was her life, her family, her dignity. The video was all over, and now the comments were pouring in. Some were supporting her, but the majority were condemning her. The accusations and assumptions ranged from "she's lying" to "she must be hiding something" to "she looks guilty" and more. Every single comment felt like a kick to the gut, and the pain was unbearable. But it was only the beginning. As the hours passed and Rasheeda was unable to avoid the never-ending barrage of notifications from both fans and followers, her phone seemed to be buzzing constantly, reminding her that her life was no longer hers. The guilt started to creep in like a dark cloud, and even though the accusations were completely unfounded, they felt like they were eroding her identity. Could Mendeecees have done something to encourage Jock to believe the rumors? Had she misjudged their relationship? The questions were endless, and the answers were elusive, making Rasheeda feel locked in. With a heavy heart and a confused mind, she grabbed her purse and headed to the one place she hoped would provide some clarity: Mendeecees' house. As she drove, her mind kept replaying the events of the previous few days, and she couldn't get rid of the feeling of betrayal that had settled deep in her chest. Why had Jock done this? Was it just an outburst, or was there more to his words? She thought of Mendeecees. When she got to his house, she took a deep breath before knocking on the door, not knowing what to expect, but knowing that she couldn't do this alone. The involvement, even if it was just speculation, was tearing her apart. And now, the thought that their friendship could have led to this betrayal felt like a weight on her shoulders. When the door opened, she saw him standing there, looking just as confused and hurt as she did. His voice was low and hesitant, and she joked, "I don't know how to reach you. I need answers." Mendeecees moved aside to let her into the house. His eyes were filled with sadness, as though he was also having trouble understanding the chaos that had broken out around them. "I know," he said, quietly. "I've seen the video, and I don't know what to say." Rasheeda's heart fell. His admission that he had seen the video only served to highlight how quickly things had gotten out of hand. But as she heard him speak, she realized something she hadn't thought of before. "Did you say anything to him that would make—" "I don't know why he's saying these things. I don't know what his game is," he said, interrupting, shaking his head. For a brief moment, Rasheeda was unable to speak. Her thoughts were still racing. But something Mendeecees said made her feel a bit more at ease. "Then what now? How do we fix this? How can I stop it?" she questioned, her voice just above a whisper. Mendeecees took a step forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We begin by ensuring that the truth is revealed, because we cannot allow this lie to continue." However, even as he was saying it, Rasheeda knew that the truth might not be enough. Because once something like this is out in the world, it's nearly impossible to undo the damage. All she could do now was try to navigate the storm and prevent herself and her family from being torn apart by the fallout. She knew, deep down, this was just the beginning. The following few days felt like a waking nightmare. Everywhere she went, people stared at her with judgmental eyes. Even her closest friends appeared aloof, unsure of what to say or what to believe. The most agonizing part? She couldn't understand why he hadn't contacted her. The accusations hadn't faded. And now, every time she opened her phone, the world was there to remind her of the scandal, the video, the comments, the whispers. After all of this, she felt as though she was left to fend for herself, alone. The silence was more deafening than any accusation Jock could have made. If he had thought a joke was the end of everything they had created, she decided to confront him, because she couldn't just sit in the dark any longer. She needed to hear it from him. She needed to know where they stood and whether their marriage could withstand the storm that Jock had started. The air felt heavy as she drove to their house, the weight of what was approaching pressing down on her chest. She parked outside and stared at the house that used to feel like a haven, a place where she could always find peace. But now, the sight of it made her stomach turn. She took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Kirk answered after a short while, his face showing a mix of exhaustion and something she couldn't quite place. He wasn't angry, but there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Rasheeda," he said softly, his voice almost distant. "We need to talk." She nodded as they entered the house and sat down in the living room. The tension was evident, and the silence between them felt like a vast and unyielding ocean. "I don't even know," she said. "Where to begin?" "Rasheeda," he said in a broken voice. "Why haven't you called me? Why haven't you been here for me?" Kirk shifted uneasily, avoiding her gaze. "I've been trying to figure things out," he said, his voice strained. "This is a lot. Jock's accusations. I didn't know what to think." Rasheeda's heart sank. "So you're doubting me? After everything we've been through? You and Mendeecees—" "I'm not accusing you of anything, Rasheeda," he interrupted. "But this whole situation is a mess. I need time to think." "You need time to think whether or not you trust me?" she asked, her voice growing bitter. Kirk didn't answer. Rasheeda's chest tightened as she fought back the tears. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were supposed to face everything together. They were supposed to be a team. But now it felt like they were on opposite sides of an unbridgeable gap. Instead of responding right away, he rubbed his face with his hands as if trying to gather his thoughts. "It's not that simple. There's so much going on, and I can't keep pretending like everything is fine when it feels like everything is falling apart." "I didn't do what he said," she whispered. Rasheeda stood up suddenly, the raw emotion bubbling up from deep within her. You want the truth? The truth is that I've been faithful to you. The truth is that I've never looked at Mendeecees in that way. Her words were barely audible. I would never hurt you like that. Never. Rasheeda, Kirk said, looking at her, his eyes softening, but the doubt still lingered in his gaze. I didn't want any of this to happen, he finally said in a strained voice. I never wanted to doubt you, Rasheeda, but Jock. She turned away, unable to look at him any longer. The truth is that Jock has ruined everything.